Greetings. Greetings, everyone. I'm Angelo Robles. And yes, it's been a long time since I've done a live. If you're watching this live and not in a recording, I've been busy wrapping up the summer with my AI masterclasses. I hosted my second biggest program of the year, primarily for my members in New York in September. I have two books that I'm completing. They'll be initially distributed as ebooks and then up on Kindle come the first quarter, and other programming in the Cayman Islands and Miami that I'm planning for. So it's been a very, very busy time. But I do want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure after you hear it, going to be very valuable for many of you. I'm going to call this build or fade, the approach that separates tomorrow's dynasties from yesterday's fortunes. And without further ado, shall we begin? So, as I mentioned today, I want to address something that to me is fundamental, something that separates those who quietly fade into irrelevance from those who build dynasties that last. It comes down to one deceptively simple line: your approach matters. So, for generations, the traditional approach to wealth has been often what I would define as defensive. Traditional thinking would often sound like this: how do we protect what we have? Modern sovereign thinking, well, it sounds different. How do we build the next billion while protecting everything that we create? And there is a big difference there. That single shift, it changes everything. It defines whether you are a caretaker or of yesterday's fortune or an architect of tomorrow's empire. Maybe I'll define this as part one. The old model of wealth, for much of the 20th century, the traditional family office model, it kind of worked. The economy moved slowly. Generational wealth could be preserved with simple diversification, basic tax structures, quarterly reviews with the investment committees. It was, again, as I've stated, somewhat of a defensive fortress. Solid walls, steady hands, and effectively what amounted, or so they or we hoped, predictable returns. The strategy was to protect the pile. But here's the problem: a fortress without expansion, eventually, it kind of becomes a museum. And today, the vast majority of family offices are effectively exactly that: expensive museums of wealth. They may be beautiful, impressive, but are they somewhat irrelevant? And why? Well, look at the last couple of years. The world has changed. Inflation, true inflation, erodes cash faster than most realize. Governments use taxation, regulation, and poor economic policy effectively as blunt weapons. Centralized financial systems, including banks and brokerages, are relatively fragile. And technology, AI, robotics, crypto, is compressing decades of change into really just a few years. In this environment, a purely defensive approach is not safety. It's like the frog in boiling water, but doesn't know it yet. It's kind of we'll call it a slow death. That leads me into my part two. Maybe the more modern sovereign approach. The modern sovereign approach does not merely protect, but it also thinks about expansion. It plays offense and defense at the same time. And they ask, like I stated earlier, how do we build the next whatever, million, 100 million, billion, 10 billion, while protecting every new layer of wealth that we create. And this is a profound psychological difference. It means refusing to be trapped by fear. It means refusing to act like yesterday's wealth is really the ceiling, when in fact, perhaps it's really only the foundation. So, what does the modern sovereign approach look like? And henceforth, that brings us into our next, what I would say is subsection. Well, first, in today's world, it's an AI first investment intelligence. The sovereign wealth engines that are not human speed, but machine speed. AI agents analyzing markets in real time. Imagine AI identifying opportunities around the world, in Tokyo and Dubai and Sao Paulo, before analysts can even finish their morning cup of coffee. So in today's world, I can argue, because this is growing exponentially, this is not optional. It's kind of the new baseline. Those who master, it's not as hard as you think, AI first positioning and building sovereign systems. They're not just managing wealth, they're multiplying it exponentially. At least they have the opportunity in terms of doing so. Kind of two, and I hinted at it earlier, subtly, multi-jurisdictional sovereignty. The modern sovereign understands that geography really is strategy. Traditional thinking might have thought, where do we live comfortably? Sovereign thinking is, where do we live most strategically? And the US is still very much a safe haven for many. But optionality and considerations and fluidity may include areas like Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, Switzerland, perhaps even select Eastern European hubs, and certain ones in Latin America. And New Zealand is very beautiful. I don't always like some of their social and other issues, but there are some advantages beyond the scope of our conversation today. But more than just lifestyle choices, how about mathematical optimizations? I know that sounds cold, but across tax, stability, and again, basically having optionality. You don't build a dynasty in today's world likely in one jurisdiction. You architect resilience across multiple. Three, I would put in, that I did mention earlier, decentralized wealth systems. Traditional wealth relies only on centralized systems, banks, custodians, really even governments. The sovereign family office builds systems that, well, I don't know if I'd quite say can't be frozen, but you have more optionality, fluidity that can't as easily be frozen or confiscated and can't be switched off per se by decree. That may mean crypto custody, tokenized assets, certain physical and real world assets, direct ownership of gold, and other maybe alternative rails for liquidity, self-custody capabilities for digital and physical stores of value. That is sovereignty in practice. Does it complicate your life? Probably. You hope it's never going to be needed. But again, wealth is so hard to come by. Protecting it while expanding it and making it secure is a complexity of art and science. I would put four, you need to consider active expansion engines. The sovereign doesn't just preserve, it expands aggressively into exponential industries. AI, robotics. What? Wall Street thinks robotics will be only a $5 trillion industry by 2030. They couldn't be, and that would still be decent. They are way off. It'll be much bigger. How about energy infrastructure, decentralized finance? Build sovereign businesses, invest directly in certain private opportunities, create asymmetric upside that likely no index fund could ever touch. You hope. Remember this. Concentration does build fortunes. Diversification, we're told, preserves them. But you concentrate first, and diversify later. What I'll now define as part 3. Why approach matters more than ever. The old wealth model was designed, like I kind of started off with, for slow economies. We no longer live in that kind of economy. Today, time itself is being compressed. What once took 30 years now happens like in 3 to 5 years. The brutal mathematics are very clear. Act now and potentially capture whatever 50, 100x returns in emerging AI driven opportunities. Wait 6 months, you may capture 10 or 20x. Wait 2 years, you may, I said may, be left buying crumbs at peak valuations. Procrastination is not harmless delay. It could be wealth destruction in real time. And here's the key. Your approach determines which side of that equation that you live on. Part 4, what I would define as the binary choice. Let me put it plainly. I think there's going to be 2 types of families in the next decade. What I would call traditionalist, custodians of yesterday and yesterday's money, operating slow, optimized for protection, while inflation, taxation, obsolescence, effectively, quietly, admittingly, but erodes everything over time. And more the modern sovereigns in thinking, builders of tomorrow's dynasties. I said earlier, playing offense and defense simultaneously, expanding into AI first opportunities while shielding wealth across jurisdictions and systems. It's not a spectrum. I think I used the word earlier, it's a binary choice. And that choice effectively and rather simply comes down to your approach. If I had, probably in taking it to the home stretch, a part 5, probably a call to action. So I ask you directly, what is your approach? Are you merely protecting what you already have while watching the world race ahead? Or are you building, again, depending on your circumstance, the next dollar, million, 10 million, 100 million, or billions, while protecting everything you create along the way? Why can't you do both? This is not a theoretical question. It's an existential one. The modern sovereign approach, forget about ego. It's not even about luxury. I mean, in some ways, not even about money in the shallow sense of that word. It's about freedom, fluidity, flexibility, and resilience. About building a dynasty that cannot be erased, well, per se, by governments, market, or time. Your approach does matter. You choose defense alone, and you could consign yourself to irrelevance. Choose sovereign expansion, and you'll join what will likely be a small minority. That's just how the world is. Who will own the future? The question is not whether new fortunes will be built, because trust me, they're being built right now. The question is whether you will be the one building them. I don't care if you're a principal, a rising generation, a family office executive, an entrepreneur. These opportunities do lie in your hands. And the opportunity for you to put ego aside, ignorance aside, and fear, all normal human emotions that we all have, and realize that the world is changing and we need to adapt. So hold that thought. Because 10 years from now, you will explain to your family, no matter which one of the examples I gave, entrepreneur, rising gen, executive, or principal, either you have captured this moment and built sovereign engines of wealth, enhanced your knowledge, became AI fluid, or that you stood still and you choose to protect only and watch the sovereigns and those enhancing their skill set and their utility to the world effectively race ahead of you. Because both stories are being written now, that's for sure. And which one will bear your name? So yes, your approach does matter. Choose, I would say, very wisely, because it really comes down to me to sovereign expansion. Choose to build and protect simultaneously. That really is the only way forward from my perspective. So again, it's been a while since, I believe, mid to late August. Like I said when I started this, I just been busy. Besides coming out of the summer, I had so much that I did this summer and significant program that I had in September, and even now looking ahead to the Cayman Islands and Miami, while effectively wrapping up the 2 books, which will initially be ebooks for my members only, and then a couple of weeks later, some other forms of distribution to others, and eventually Kindle. I still have 2 significant masterclasses, creating a modern sovereign family office and my work that I've done on sovereign risk and disaster prep, a little bit of which even this sequelatory kind of covered a little bit of both. So those are going to be for later in the year. And really, my baby is Palm Beach every March, and I'm already putting effort into that, even multiple months ahead of time. You can never really start too early. And just other things I've been thinking about, even all the work that I'm doing in AI, like I took it to another level in the last month, mainly not through constant reading and learning. You got to take action. You have to put a plan in place and execute it, iterate it, because Lord knows what you're doing, it's going to look a little different, as I learned, an hour, a week, a month later. So I kind of created my own app. I don't know how to code, but I talk about this in the AI Family Office Masterclass, how to use programs like Lovable and Bolt.new and then actually do it. Now, yeah, did it take 11 minutes? Well, not quite. Because it's going to be more public facing as an app, which was a lot of integration work, it actually took closer to 40 to 50 hours. But I did it, and I'm excited. And I'm thinking about how family offices could create things that are in their mind and effectively make, to a degree, with possibly no AI integration engineering, make it come to life. And then maybe it does need a little clean up and touch up, and there's millions of AI engineers I could introduce, at least for my members, many of you too. So this is really an exciting time, a very exciting time. Now, one of the books in its earlier incarnation, 10 Things a Family Office Could Do with AI Right Now, I did announce that back in August. I sent that out to 40,000 people in my distribution list. Now, I admit, just once, it was August, I got like 35 responses. You're kidding me. All the work that I put into it, that I am living through it, 133 pages, I'm effectively giving you for free. And well under 1% of you showed any interest in it. Again, I go back to ego, ignorance, and fear. You can't put your head in the sand on AI. I'm not really sure that I really like it either. I'm a 60-year-old man. I want to go back to some degree to how things used to be. But that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. That's not going to make me viable or my children or grandchildren viable in a world. What utility do I provide? And what's the knowledge and skill set that I need to develop to provide that utility that allows me to not just be average, not just fit into a universal base income plan in 3 or 5 years? That's not acceptable to me, and I'm assuming to many of you. If you sit around and let the ego, the ignorance, and fear get in the way, you will fall behind. I don't want that to be you. That's why I'm saying this with a lot of passion. And even basically today, my sequelatory that I gave today on Build or Fade really hinted at strongly a lot of these issues. So hopefully you all missed me over much of the last month to month and a half. That's debatable. And again, like who else in the family office world is bringing this to you? So I do encourage those of you that are qualified to go to angelorobles.com and to join, be a part of the membership, join the community of rising families that are participating, including multiple times a year in person and immersing and being a part of my master classes and my proprietary content, not just the more public facing like this is. And I'm doing more and more of that specifically for members as they've been getting certain special distributions the last week or two. And more writing that I'm getting back to as well. And really the whole network that took me decades to build and that has evolved since my transition in selling Family Office Association a couple of years ago and to what I'm creating and traveling the world and doing now. Like I said many times, I'm an imperfect person. I do make mistakes. I need and luckily desire to be curious and learn every day because I want to have a utility that's going to be viable in a very unique and challenging world and an environment that we're going through. I do not have all the answers. I have way more questions than I have answers. But I know sitting still is not the answer. I know I need to constantly adapt, enhance my utility, be resilient, and move forward. We all have problems and challenges. We must find a way to overcome it. I think I heard a variation of what Musk stated, something like, all failure is effectively psychological, except, well, there's a couple of things, but certainly death would be one or a death sentence. So we all need to overcome. How many billionaires had companies that went bankrupt or challenges, and even Musk multiple times, especially more so in Tesla, but also one of his other companies was on the brink effectively challenges and needed to borrow money and government help. Like, just have to face some of these realities, put any political differences aside. So you need to overcome. That's what makes us human, and that's what makes us advance. We need to have a tiger chasing us, so to speak. But perhaps I'll save that discussion for a little bit of a different time. Some interesting comments coming in. Someone mentioned something about Uruguay. Uruguay is an awesome country, one that has relatively, for much of the last 50 years, been stable, and considering opportunities in LATAM or a hub or a satellite, probably a decent opportunity for certain families to consider. Also mentioned pain reflection equals progress. That's Ray Dalio. That's correct. That could bring up a whole bunch of other discussions on our current economic state, what Ray Dalio talks about that, much of it that I agree with, but there are certain conclusions, and maybe I'll go with the word solutions, that I disagree with the iconic Mr. Dalio, who once spoke at one of my 2014 Family Office Association events. But again, all subjects, geopolitics, macroeconomics, and even more in AI and other subjects to come in the future. I wanted to keep this half an hour. I can't cover everything. Many of you note you want me to do shorter, more compact discussions and videos, for lack of a better word, or lives. And I had too much that was long. And I will go back to doing some of the 2-hour interviews with thought leaders. I really only did 2 core ones this summer, but they were powerhouses. Go on my @Family Office on YouTube. David Hunter, the iconic macro strategist, and the one and only, the boom, doom, and gloom himself, Dr. Mark Faber, joining us from Thailand, the Swiss economist, well into his 80s, drinking his beer, smoking his cigarette. I think I did have to light up a cigar, if I remember. I was traveling a little bit at that time. It was a lot of fun. But yes, there'll be more of that. But I have a lot more solos, a lot more commentary, and really driving things into my membership practice, my consulting practice, which is getting more global. I love my U.S. families, of course. I'm a U.S. citizen, but it's very exciting how in the United Arab Emirates, LATAM, parts of Asia, Europe. There's just so much of a fascination with becoming, let's go with the word, a global citizen, global structures in the family office, the impact of AI, entrepreneurship in the family, sovereign diversity, how governments could go rogue and go wrong no matter where you are. All fascinating subjects, and ones that will keep me busy for a long, long time to come. I appreciate all of your support of watching and or listening to my content. You're greatly appreciated. I always want to get better. Again, like I said even a couple of minutes ago, wickedly imperfect, have more questions than I have answers, not afraid to throw out unique and bold opinions and thoughts, and happily encourage feedback. Open and active debate and conversation is what makes a lot of things great, and some of the things that we're being challenged with now in this country. So I'm never afraid to hear the opposite perspective. Like, what are you trying to hide when you try to silence something? Like, it's such an awesome message that I guess you don't want it to go out. A comment came in. Have you considered getting Luke Groman on the channel? Yes, of course. I follow him on Twitter. I'm a huge fan. If there's a way that you think I could reach out to him, if you're a newsletter subscriber and have an email or something like that, shoot it over to my email, angelo@angelorobles.com, or go to my website, angelorobles.com. He is awesome. I am a big fan. That would be an example where, yeah, that would be a 2-hour plus interview. We're going hardcore. I like to stir the boat, and I would probably mix things up a little bit with Luke, although for the most part, I greatly agree. But my thoughts, even on some of the issues in the debt and deficit and broadly macroeconomics and all things that gravely concern me. I mean, our debt in this country is ridiculous, and our deficit, like, it's what our expenditures as a country are up 54%, right? Pre-COVID. So what, 5 years ago to now? That's ridiculous. Is my life 54% better? Am I getting 54% more benefits? Now, all that being said, debt, deficit, all the challenges, I'm telling you, AI and the impact, we could put GDP into there, the impact on jobs, what we learned and what I learned and sometimes still stick to. I don't know if it's going to hold up in the new world, so to speak, economy, and the impact on AI and what that's going to do. There's so much to have conversations, which I did at my September program. Many of you like Jordy Vischer. I've interviewed Jordy on my platform. He spoke at my event in Palm Beach. He just spoke 2 weeks ago at my event in New York. I'm assuming many of you follow him or heard him every week. He's on Pump, and he has a very different, unique perspective on it. And I'm not so sure that he's wrong. Like, AI is really going to collapse many different things in companies and the economy, but also create unbelievable opportunities. And it'll be interesting. And he goes on to really the only solution more longer term is kind of going to be the ownership of effectively Bitcoin. And I think he was moderately positive on gold. But all great subjects. Glad to be back after a busy but kind of mini hiatus. So again, I appreciate all of you. Go to angelorobles.com. Follow me across all socials. And if you're here live, have a wonderful rest of the weekend. And not much of a challenge today, although I am kind of wearing the color. I just realize it. And no, it's not Go Crimson Tide, although I do like me, Alabama. It's Boomer Sooner, everyone. Although today's not much of a challenge. Next week, Texas, that burnt orange, you're going to get whipped by the great Oklahoma Sooners. And thank you. I just lost not only everyone in Texas, anyone in my international audience has no idea in terms of what I'm talking about. But I do love me American football and college football. Oklahoma Sooners are simply the best. Thank you all and have a great day.